Chapter 101, How Not to Fight a Divine Beast. As the triple domain met my life domain, I sensed my domain be pushed aside. Then, with a crunch, the snake's teeth sank into me, easily penetrating my bark. I felt the pressure on my body increase as it was crushed by the jade snake dowager, and the spots where the teeth had pierced my bark started to sizzle. So to sum up my situation, my domain was overpowered. I was about to be partially crushed, and the snake's venom has acid properties that were dissolving me. My first priority was to get that maw off me and heal, otherwise this fight would end quite prematurely and with my death. Taking advantage of the snake's direct contact with me, I channeled as much lightning into her as possible. Luckily, the dowager didn't seem to have expected me to have a second innate understanding and use it at such close proximity. Arcs of lightning ran along with her head, and the scent of charred meat filled the air. Wishing to escape the shocking touch, she snapped back her head, taking a good amount of wood along with her and leaving me with a gaping hole. To see the good things, all the venom was within the lost wood and didn't affect me anymore. Internalizing my domain, I quickly sought to patch up the hole while the jade snake dowager was still reeling from the pain. Unfortunately, my hard-earned break didn't last long. A grayish mist emerged from her dark, green scales and painted them in a dull luster, driving out any remains of the lightning within her. Still in midair, the jade snake dowager's gaze fell on me and made me freeze up for a moment. Before, her gaze had been filled with killing intent and slaughter lust, but now a new nuance was added. Her gaze was dripping with hatred. I had actually managed to do harm to her. Despite being clearly inferior, I had managed to bypass her defenses and make her feel pain. It made her furious. Now I became worried that my rash action might have just served to speed up my inevitable doom. Her triple domain increased its intensity and was now meant to harm me just by being inside it. I had triggered her full annihilation mode. From the foot of the mountain, a group of colorful light was approaching and made me see a ray of hope. Reinforcement of any kind was very welcome. Jade Snake Dowager had noticed them too, but didn't pay them any heed. Their strength was not even on my level, so to her, they were little more than ants. But so was I until I'd managed to hurt her. As the group approached, a flash passed by and hit the snake's side. A fountain of greenish-grayish blood shoots out from a newly created wound at her side, prompting me to take a second look at the newcomers. Leaving us alone in that cave wasn't really the kindest thing to do, you know. Since the source of despair was gone, I figured you would be safer in there. On another note, you look a lot better now, Sigmund. I finally realized that I was going to overthinking. I'm not the greatest strategist, so it's best for me to just fight head-on and leave the thinking to Loki. You dare ignore me? Just because you injured me doesn't mean you stand a chance. The Jade Snake Dowager's wound had already closed, and her mood had definitely not improved. She was positively fuming with anger, her body coiled in midair akin to a spring and ready to be fired straight at us. Don't touch the cloud around her and keep attacking from a distance while I distract her. Flying around in the sky as a large tree wasn't really my forte, but I figured that no one beside me could afford to take a hit from the raging serpent before us. These thoughts, however, were quickly pushed to the back of my mind as a giant maw with scary teeth came barreling for me. I knew better than to try and block with just my domain again and began to hastily condense a sphere of lightning with as much power as I could. As the triple domain clashed with the sphere of lightning, there was a short stalemate. Lightning naturally restrained the power of death and thus managed to rattle the integrity of the triple domain. However, this only lasted a few seconds before the domain stabilized and pushed through. Enough time for me to maneuver out of the serpent's trajectory and avoid being bitten. The human King Magi under Sigmund's lead fired a volley of attacks, but the Jade Snake Dowager's tail whipped our and reduced all their efforts to dust. Chapter 102, True Guardian. Our strategy was evidently not working. I barely evaded a few more charges, but the outcome didn't change much. The Jade Snake Dowager's tail decimated any and all attacks coming at her, and even the one strike from Sigmund that got past her tail wasn't able to penetrate the triple domain. Just as I was mentally complaining about our lack of firepower, a portal opened beside me and Night Owl stepped out along with 1010. "Since when can you open portals?" "Wasn't me," a voice in my head said that you were in trouble and I should enter the portal to get here. "So, what's troubling you?" "Look right ahead and you'll see the problem." "Please tell me it isn't that divine beast you talked about before." "Yeah, it's her all right." With the addition of Night Owl, we finally stood a chance at harming the Jade Snake Dowager. Together our domains could weaken the triple domain enough for a light slash of Sigmund's grammar to reach the serpent's scales. Unfortunately, the damage we did was negligible and we'd have to pile up a lot of hits to kill the snake. Meanwhile, the Jade Snake Dowager needed to only get a few good hits on me and we'd be done for. Our situation was getting more and more precarious and the snake had found out that attacking me was way too hard. Instead, she tried to go for both Sigmund and Night Owl. Night Owl was fine since he could use his domain to buy himself the time to evade, but Sigmund had nothing of the sort. Despite his light and swift movements, it was only a matter of time for him to get taken out in one hit. And so it happened, the Jade Snake Dowager brushed past Sigmund, soaking him in her triple domain for a few seconds and even giving him a nick with her fang. The effects were near instantaneous. Sigmund's complexion turned an unhealthy green and he was quickly losing altitude. The poison wasn't something that could kill him, but it would take him a few hours to fully recover, leaving him vulnerable to another attack. Not that the serpent had any intentions of attacking him again. She was much more interested in Night Owl and me, and we had no chance of defeating her. I quickly lost a fair amount of wood and Night Owl's condition was worse, we were barely holding on. "So, who's going to save us this time?" The question was asked more jokingly, and I hardly expected an answer. Our situation was quite desperate and nothing short of a divine beast could save us. "Have you forgotten about your guardian? He might not have been around for a few years, but he is meant to protect you." We were. The ground began to quake as a beastly roar shattered the atmosphere. Even the Jade Snake Dowager froze up for a moment and turned into the direction where the roar came from. Impossible. How can I still feel fear towards a being from this realm? I will kill it. From afar, we could make out a giant pillar of dust approaching quickly. Then, with a mighty leap, a 9-meter-tall squirrel shot into the sky heading straight for the Jade Snake Dowager. Rat? Rat? Oh, it's my guardian beast, Ratatoskr. I really had forgotten all about him. In midair, a lightning domain spread out from Ratatoskr. The lightning domain was incredibly pure and unlike mine, it was completely self-comprehended. It has only one domain, can it really fight against 3 domains? Look more closely. A double domain doesn't have to mean that you can use 2 domains layered above each other. In rare cases it is possible to just use 2 domains simultaneously, one externally and the other internally. But why can't I tell the element of his internal domain? As the 2 beasts' domains met, a clear winner was quickly decided. Ratatoskr's lightning domain was eliminated and the triple domain was able to reach Ratatoskr's body. However, despite being enveloped in a totally lethal mix of domains, the squirrel remained perfectly unharmed. He kept flying in his previous trajectory and collided with the Jade Snake Dowager. An incredibly sharp pair of front teeth pierced through the snake's scales and left a long, bloody gash. The Jade Snake Dowager screamed in pain as the squirrel let off and jumped back to the ground. Chapter 103, and one more. Ratatoskr landed on the ground, did a U-turn, and once again launched himself at the Jade Snake Dowager. He seemed intent to bleed the serpent lady out. Death by 1,000 bites or something. Sadly, the second attack was already seeing a decrease in efficiency. Through a quick set of undulations, the Jade Snake Dowager managed to prevent Ratatoskr from latching onto her. Thus, she only received a few broken scales. With every repeat of their exchange, the Jade Snake Dowager got better at dodging the squirrel and even began to counterattack. Curiously though, the wounds left by Ratatoskr never stopped bleeding, despite the high healing rate all divine beasts possessed. Still, waiting until that giant serpent bled out wasn't really an option. Just then the Jade Snake Dowager's tail lashed out and hit Ratatoskr right in the chest. He was catapulted into a nearby mountain but immediately emerged, still unharmed and raring to go. Following up on her first attack, the Jade Snake Dowager rushed down and sank her large fangs into the unsuspecting squirrel, only to be bounced back upon contact with the fur. The Jade Snake Dowager looked like she had just tried to bite some kind of indestructible object, and one her fangs showed visible cracks. Don't tell me. What is it, Eldar? Have you figured out its second domain? I'm not sure, but it might be a domain of time and focus on the state of eternity. After all, few other domains can completely ward off an attack like that and even produce a backlash. The thing that had led to Ratatoskr's evolution had been a pill given by Lady Aurelia. From what I remembered, time was indeed one of the innate understandings she had been working on, so it would make sense for her pill to help acquire such powers. Still, the battle had entered into a stalemate. While the squirrel couldn't be wounded, his combat experience was so poor that his attacks mainly consisted of straight lunges and grabbing. The Jade Snake Dowager had ample experience in fighting tough opponents and managed to evade those attacks after her moment of shock had abated. This isn't looking good for us, Eldar. We can't win a battle of attrition. Technically, the Jade Snake Dowager's stamina should run out before Rats, so no problem there. The real threat lies in her realizing that she could just attack us. Fear not, however, for I have a plan. If I could increase that squirrel's power by a large enough margin, then combat experience would become irrelevant. I wasn't sure if I could boost his power up to that level, but enlightenment fruits were my only chance. From the two different types I could produce, he had already consumed one, the lightning attributed fruit, in copious amounts. Using it again would probably not yield high results. Thus, my only choice was the life-attributed fruit. I peeled my non-existent eyes from the battle above and grew a life enlightenment fruit with all my efforts. By the time I was done, I took another look at the battle, hoping to find an opportunity to sneak the fruit to Ratatoskr without interference. Raising my gaze, I found two enormous beasts staring at me with burning eyes. I will devour you, and then kill that squirrel. Give me that sweet, sweet life so I can crush it between my teeth. With a whip of her tail, Ratatoskr was sent flying. He wasn't hurt but too far away to intercept the approaching snake. Scree! Another bone-shattering cry rocked the ground as the space above me suddenly caved in and revealed a giant ball of fluff. Its appearance alone sent tremors through space, threatening to rupture reality itself. Another divine beast had joined the fray, and this one seemingly had an innate understanding of space. What was it here for? Me, the snake, or the fruit? Different from last time, the Jade Snake Dowager didn't slow down and observe the new competitor. She kept on flying straight at me with nothing but murder on her mind. She would first devour the fruit, then kill me, and then the others. Nothing would make her stop now. The giant ball of fluff above gave a tisk in disapproval, then reality shattered. Chapter 104, Queen Kimbu. Space was a rather fickle element or concept or whatever you wish to call it. Together with time, it formed the primal cage of chaos, bringing order and stability. They are the base for what we call reality. Time was first, an unbreakable force that flowed throughout the chaos. It could be bent, pushed, stopped, and even reversed, but never be broken. Space came second, a stable force that created room for physical beings. Unlike space, it was the pillar that held reality and could be broken. What would happen if reality broke? A fissure would appear within the grid protecting us, and ancient, primal chaos would be released. Only beings that had surpassed divinity could safely withstand the chaos. But enough of all that theoretical knowledge. As I had been saying, reality broke under the strain of the spatial fluctuation, and chaos emerged. Well, what I thought was chaos emerged. I'd never seen chaos or anything close to it and had no way of verifying it. It was impossible to describe. If I had to, I'd say it looked like liquefied void and stars. Like a spring, it poured out above the jade snake dowager and submerged her. Akin to a ravenous beast, the chaos began to rip into the triple domain, demolishing it within seconds. Quickly, space mended and the chaos was banished and replaced by reality once again. Then, with a glorious bang, the ball of fluff descended onto the snake's head, burying it a few meters in the ground. Kimbu. I assume you want the life enlightenment fruit, don't you? Kimbu. Carrot. Kimbu. With a charade of absurd faces, it grabbed the apple and ate it with relish. Meanwhile, the jade snake dowager raised her head out of the dirt it had been buried in. Contrary to my expectations, she looked even more furious than before. How dare an insignificant mouse with wings step on my head? Do you know what happens to mice like you? I devour them whole, crush their bones, and make them suffer. Tisk, tisk, asterisk, dot, Kimbu. A small paw extended from the fluffy ball and gently waved. Two circles appeared in midair, one before the paw and one in front of the jade snake dowager's head. As the circle moved towards her head and touched it, her head reappeared out of the other circle in front of Kimbu's paw. The circles functioned as gates. The paw then advanced with astonishing speed, only to deliver a faint tap onto the menacing-looking head. Was that supposed to hurt? Are you mocking me, you shitty rat? Poor choice of words was all I could say. Another elegant wave of the paw swept through the air, and the gates suddenly disappeared. Without the spatial tunnel between the gates, the connection between the jade snake dowager's head and body also vanished, and she was decapitated. Just like that, a divine beast that had been the apex predator of this world was killed with ease by a slightly enraged Kimbu. The imminent threat was gone, and I could fully concentrate on healing the large gashes in my body. Kimbu gave a sad groan and created another rift in space and disappeared through it. I was kind of sad to see it leave so soon after saving my life and eating my enlightenment fruit. But I understood. Kimbu was a creature from another world, and Lady Aurelia seemed displeased if it left its world. Wouldn't want to anger a being that can crush us all like bugs. Roar. And up my trunk an enraged rat came running. Standing on the branch where the enlightenment fruit had been growing, the squirrel struggled to muster a pout. Its clumsy attempts at acting cute were clearly aimed at me. I wanted a life enlightenment fruit for itself. You couldn't even take down a threat that was wanting to kill the tree you are supposed to guard. Why do I even keep you around? Squayak. I admit my resistance to cuteness had faded over the years, and I couldn't bring myself to deny the furry critter. A few minutes later, Rat was happily skipping around before taking a nap to aid digestion. Now give me that sweet, sweet corpse. Can I grow a divine beast? Chapter 105, Returning Home. I absorbed the jade snake dowager and saw the most complicated structure I'd ever seen. Every cell in this beast had been tailor-made to produce a killing machine like no other. Scales with incredible density supported by an inner plating that acts as a second skin to absorb shocks, fangs that were infused with venom in addition to more venom being excreted to coat the fangs. And on the subject of venom, it's a devious concoction that contains corrosive, paralyzing, and lethal components. Also, let's not forget the tail, that's able to be used as a whip. Once I have deduced its magic blueprint and grown this ancient serpent, I would be invincible in this world. Forget about that. You can't grow an adult divine beast, it will be an infant, you'll have to wait for it to grow up. Now head back to your birthplace. The collection of faith has advanced faster than before and your evolution can proceed. Why should I go all the way back just to evolve? If I evolve here, I can get back much faster anyway. Please stop being so difficult. Just do it. Fine, fine. No need to get so worked up. First, I'd have to take a look at the condition of my allies. My own body had mostly been restored, and I once again took my human form. Night Owl was lying a few meters away, battered and bruised by that horrible tail that had crashed into him multiple times. He lay there like a starfish. Need some healing anywhere? I think I've broken more bones than I even knew I had. If I didn't have the darkness to hold myself together, I'd already be done for. Let me take a look then. I let a warm current of healing magic enter Night Owl's body. What greeted me is a wasteland of a body. His bones were mostly crushed, tissue was ripped in multiple places, and his organs were only held together by tendrils of darkness. Careful not to dispel the darkness, before he was healed, I began to mend his bones and tissue first. After half an hour of continuous healing, I move on to his organs. There, you're all patched up. Thanks for coming to my help. I did as I had promised. We dark elves will never fail to return a favor. Next up, Sigmund. Last time I'd seen him he went down after being poisoned quite badly. However, based on the power he had shown during the fight, he should be able to clear most of the venom. Arriving where the human king Magi had gathered, I was shocked to find that my judgment was off. Sigmund was on a makeshift bed with both Loki and a human healer fussing over him. As I approached, the deep frown on Loki's face eased a bit. Please tell me you have a way to clear that venom. We can only delay it for so long. I don't get it, his innate understanding is in light. Dispelling venom shouldn't be that difficult, he could pierce the triple domain after all. That wasn't his true power. Grammar can massively boost attack power, especially for light magic. But it does nothing for dispelling or healing. Let me see what I can do. It was a good thing that my core was already busily analyzing the composition of the venom. Knowing its composition made counteracting it much easier, and most of the venom was cleared within minutes. All done. But you should still let him rest for a few days. I'll see to it that he does. We need him to be in top condition when the next invasion happens. And what are you planning to do now that you know the truth? For me, nothing has changed, I'll evolve until I reach the limit. But for now, I'm heading back to check in with Volsung. By the way, have you seen Adam? We lost track of him since the battle. Dead, the snake ate him. How? He was a demigod. He was drowning in negative emotions. He was just an empty shell at this point, and nothing could bring him back. I see. That's unfortunate. Then I collected Rat and we were off. Chapter 106, Evolution. Back at my home city, come to think of it, I don't remember its name, I had another meeting with Volsung. I was informed about the resolution of the undead invasion and the dissolving of the United Front. Overall, we had reaped considerable benefits from these recent events. Elemental juice became an incredibly sought-after commodity, and the rewards I received for taking out all those real and fake king magi were used to further grow the city. I hadn't been away for long, but the city had expanded exponentially. At first most believers thought you weren't serious about not returning to your place until they did something useful, but after a few days, they grew scared. Since then they have been working in a frenzy to expand the city, increase trade, and even eliminate poverty. They wanted to eliminate poverty? That's a pretty dreamy idea, isn't it? How so? I can proudly say there is not a single poor, homeless, or orphaned soul in this city. Everyone was given work and a place to sleep, and orphans were adopted by all who could afford to support them. What's driving these people? Remember when you took in Narita and those orphans and made them your personal guards? When Narita returned, she, as the one who knew you for the longest, was asked how to calm your wrath. She didn't have a real answer, but told many stories of the past, and the part with the orphans caught people's attention. That's good then, the time is right for me to return. But before that, I'd like to meet Narita and also Sven if he returned. I'm afraid they are both far away at the moment. Narita left for further training and Sven left to get stronger after hearing about the invasion from another world. So the news has already reached you here? I've been hoping to spend some time with them before I go. Go where? I don't know, but I have a feeling that my next evolution may bring some consequences with it. I may be wrong, but I can't shake this feeling that something is going to happen. I understand. I'll give them your regards once they return. Then, I'll be off. Sure. As I walked out of the governor's mansion, I couldn't help but notice a feeling of sadness coming from Volsing. Maybe I wasn't the only one who had the feeling that something was about to happen. Burrowing underground from an empty alley, I once again left the city. I came to the place where I had once stood and felt a little reminiscent. Most of my time in this world had been spent here, and if nothing went wrong, I'd be staying here for even longer. I'd have to make some additional preparations, because this time's evolution would take quite a while if I wasn't wrong. I modified the blueprint I used to make saplings to make a degraded version that wouldn't grow further and could only grow one fruit. Then I spread saplings all around myself, giving them all a different thing to grow. For everything I could grow there was a tree. With the only exceptions being the mythical and divine beasts. Then I entered the crater where my roots had been. May the lasting one see my will to succeed. Murmuring a short prayer in my mind, I released all the spells on my body. Gravity returned in full force, my human looks disappeared and made way for expanding wood that shot outward until my full size was revealed. My roots dug into the earth and my leaves swayed softly in the wind. With one pulse of nature magic supported by my innate understanding of life, all the saplings quickly grew into fully matured trees. Out of nowhere, Rat came running up my trunk and settled down on one of my branches to take a nap. Now, let us commence my next evolution. System, give me all the details. Very well, I will now inject the gathered faith into you. Evolution will come naturally, just relax and follow the flow. By now I was sure that this was a lie, but I might as well roll with it. From the sky, a golden current only visible to me cascaded down. As it washed over me, a cooling sensation spread throughout my body. I felt like all the innate understandings I had been digesting were suddenly much clearer to understand. Such was the power of faith. The thing that should come to pass naturally didn't really happen, so I'd take things into my own hands. Or should I say branches? I had already grasped one strong innate understanding, life. Now I needed another that I could somehow connect to the first and create a double domain. Taking advantage of the astounding clarity the incoming faith provided me with, I simply selected the thing I thought the most compatible with life, which turned out to be nature. Finally, the full effect of faith hit me like a drug as my consciousness faded into the background. I could feel my subconsciousness work like crazy while I felt like I was floating on a cloud. So soft and comfortable. I could faintly tell that my body was changing and a feeling of power spread out around me. Slowly, I returned to my senses as the power of faith began to ebb away. I longed for the state I'd been in and tried to hold on to the faith, but it simply vanished like a dried-up river. Trying to forget that intoxicating feeling, I looked around. Around me was a double domain. I felt incredibly familiar with it, but something about it also felt strange. Whenever I thought about the double domain, its connection word appeared in my mind. Nature's life. Congratulations, you've successfully become a divine tree. Or to use the official terms, I am now an archmage of the 8th rank. Or am I wrong? Moving on. It's now time for your follow-up evolution. Wait, what? Chapter 107, The Connection. You will now come into contact with natural origin energy. Through a subsequent bond with the world, you will become a world tree and fulfill your destiny of being the next Yggdrasil. Whoa there. One step at a time. I still haven't manifested magic in its physical form. It's too early for me to come in contact with natural origin energy. Manifesting magic is a superfluous act. Commencing the injection. The bond will be established in a few seconds. And don't you move or all my efforts will be wasted. I didn't have to be told that twice. Rallying all my power, I flew up from the ground and levitated in the sky. I could see them now, white threads spearing for my soul trying to tie me down. I weaved left, right, up and down to dodge all the threads while ascending higher into the sky. Meanwhile, my core was churning after strange energy had entered it. My next evolution had already commenced, but it wasn't like the system had planned. What are you doing? Nothing was planned by the system, it's destiny. Now get back here and be connected to the world. It's your destiny, you cannot escape fate. How about you drop the charade? You are by no means a real system, and this fate you speak of is just your own plan to save yourself. Baseless accusations. You don't talk like a system, you can contact other people besides me and open portals over large distances. You are this world's will, admit it. The Nox Aeterna tried to warn me, but I didn't get it back then. All this was premeditated by you. The humans finding me, my sapling being burned, the royal descendants having dragon bloodlines, and the convenient beginning of the undead invasion right after I woke up. You were just raising me like some houseplant, shoving nutrition my way and motivating me to grow without letting anything too dangerous get to me. But you fucked up, the Jade Snake Dowager defied you and decided to kill me, so you had to reveal some of your abilities. Am I wrong? So what if I did all that to make you grow strong? So what if you nearly got killed because I let that useless serpent slip away for a moment? I saved you. I raised you. Obey me and let me bind you. And let you force me into eternal servitude? Do you think I don't know that a connection with the world can't be broken? I'd be bound to you for all eternity. But that's what you want, isn't it? I'm not the first individual you granted natural origin energy, am I? The threads grew more erratic, they waved around wildly trying to catch me, but were ultimately unable to. Not another word from you. But as soon as they became a deity, they left. As a world that could afford to raise a deity, but wasn't protected by one, you then became a target. Do not speak of that traitor. I gave him everything, and he just left. So your solution is to just tie the next deity you raise down in order to keep them? If that's how you act, I'm not astonished the first one left you. Why are you all so defiant? I was created by a great lord you could never hope to match, and despite that, I'm left at the corner of the multiverse, left to slave away like a lower realm. I was born for greatness. Now stop rejecting my kindness, or I will eliminate you. From the core of the world, I could feel an individual approach. The world's will had already used him to threaten me in the past, the divine lumberjack. Technically, I was already a deity, and thus stronger than him, but the second evolution wasn't complete yet. Him being my absolute nemesis really didn't improve my chances. However, even if I was cut down here and now, it would be a better outcome than being bound. Geez, Eldar, way to be overly dramatic. You should be well aware of what the little plate I gave you can do. There is no way you will die today. I didn't know how the plate I'd received so long ago had managed to stay with me, no pockets and all that, but now it was glowing and a calm voice rang out from it. Chapter 108, True Power of Deities. The symbol etched into the game plate shone with a resplendent light as it grew larger. Once it was big enough for a human to pass through, it was gushing magic like a spring, and a figure emerged from it. Lord Abel stepped through the gate as a phantom wind rustled his clothes. I couldn't feel any aura, magic, or life force from him. He was like a black hole in a world of color. All magic that got close to him just vanished. How dare you invade this realm? The great god, Tacitus, created this realm, and now you desecrate it with your presence. So you're one of his creations, huh? I hate to break it to you, but Tacitus doesn't exist anymore. The divine sanctuary has been breached and most creation gods died in the ensuing battle. You'll have a hard time finding any of the old creation gods nowadays. Lies. Lord Tacitus is the strongest creation god in existence. He never could have been defeated by the likes of you. Now die. For the reference, I didn't participate in that battle nor the following slaughter. But I can't let you kill or bind Eldar, and that is final. At that, the world lashed out. An unbelievable amount of pure origin energy flowed from the world's core to deliver a terrifying strike. I couldn't move an inch, firmly suppressed by the sense of dread growing within me. Lord Abel, on the other hand, seemed completely unaffected. He floated in midair unmoved, while watching the incoming strike with contempt. Primordial chaos, come forth and return everything to its origin. Domain. The domain formed around him, filled with a myriad of colors, ever-changing and without any visible order. The world strike entered the domain and dissolved soon after, becoming one with chaos indistinguishable from the rest. How is that possible? Chaos has always been the bane of all creative powers. But really, is this the best attack you can muster? Let me show you how a deity uses origin energy. The same energy the world had used before was now employed by Lord Abel. However, despite it being the same energy, the one Lord Abel directed felt different. The world's origin energy had given the feeling of a superior being that gave life and death as it saw fit. Lord Abel's origin energy gave off a rather mundane feeling. TSK, the origin energy of a peasant. You know, I always thought that superiority is such a narrow view creation. Isn't creation about diversity? How would a world look like if there were no peasants, as you call them, no lower life forms that do those mundane things we tend to forget? Can a creator who sees himself as superior create something that is inferior without making it flawed? In my opinion, origin energy isn't about the creator, but about the creation. A slash of his hand sent the mundane-looking origin energy flying. It rushed down towards the ground at impeccable speed and obliterated the divine lumberjack in passing. You can never reach me. I'm protected by layers upon layers of earth, rock, and magma. Your power will run. Oh, really? You know, earth, rock, and magma are mundane things too, all are part of creation. No, he couldn't. Was what I thought. Origin energy was physically present, wasn't it? Eldar, remember the strike from the world, didn't it pass through the ground too? Of course, the worlds will take this as a natural occurrence. Its origin energy is naturally attuned to its world, so no surprise there, but why would I be unable to do the same? As Lord Abel said that his strike passed through the ground akin to a phantom. I could see what was going on now, but my senses were telling me that the strike was still descending without obstruction. Impossible. You cannot destroy me. The whole world will go down if you do. Are you going to erase so many innocent lives? You just keep talking nonsense. I won't kill you, you'll merely be put to sleep. Sealed away for a few millennia. Nuo. All done. Did the worlds will just experience fear? It shouldn't be capable of fearing death or anything. It's not fear. It's a self-preservation instinct left behind by the Creator. The two are comparable but not exactly the same. Fear is something our descendants will also have, but a world born of another world will lack the self-preservation instinct unless a Creator intervenes. So it's over now? Not really. Now we get down to business. Chapter 109, Recruitment. I see, you probably didn't go through the trouble of saving me just out of the goodness of your heart, right? True. So what do I have to do? Have to? Nothing. Forcing people never works out in the long run, and since all of us have an unlimited lifespan, resentment has too much time to grow. I saved you in order to create an opportunity. If you take this opportunity or leave to pursue your own path is entirely your own choice to make. So I can choose to follow you or join another one of the great powers? I regret to tell you, but you probably won't be able to join another faction. You had contact with me in both this and your previous life. Every other faction will think of you as a spy. If you do not wish to join us, you'll be on your own. But you are more or less a deity, so that shouldn't be too much of a problem. Also, you should know, I'm recruiting you not for my team, but for our friends. So I'm not good enough for you? I wouldn't say that you're not good enough. You aren't suitable for me. You are a tree who specializes in life and nature stuff, while my expertise lies otherwise. I'm recruiting you for the garden department of the Grey Empire. It's headed by Rose. Like me, she is a member of the Six on High. Additionally, she the guardian of life, so you are perfect for her. The guardian of life? How come I've never heard of her? She's a bit more reclusive than the rest of us. Human interaction isn't her greatest forte, she prefers animals and plants. That sounds great. Sign me up. No signing needed, I'll take you to meet her, and we'll take things from there. Do you have any unfinished business to take care of? I can wait a few days while you go down and say your goodbyes. I fear that I don't want to leave anymore if I see them again, but staying here might be a bad idea. There is only one thing I'd like to do. I'll create another heir to take my place for the people below. The mini trees should help them out until the sapling matured. Thankfully, I already knew how to create heirs by myself since the worlds will have been too busy or lazy to do it. Having done all of this once already, I went through the various steps with ease and let the sapling descend. It reached where I had stood before and found a snug little hole to fit into. With that done, I turned back to Lord Abel. I'm ready to go now. You'll regret not saying goodbye to your friends here. But once you get some mastery in space magic, you can always come back, so it's not too bad. I'll open a gate now. It's a passage between two worlds with quite some distance, so it may be a little volatile. Shouldn't I take my human form? If you want to. Your total mass won't change, and making the gate big enough for you to fit through isn't a problem. Though Rose might like you more if you look like a tree. With that, Lord Abel stretched out his hand and made a cutting motion with his index finger. Space before a split like a curtain that is drawn to both sides. The split extended upwards and downwards until I could comfortably float through. We both entered the gate and I felt a little shake before we exited on the other side. If I had organs, I would probably be sick to my stomach, but I'm a tree. I found myself in a wide clearing surrounded by a veritable jungle of different kinds of trees. All around us, I could make out the noises from animals living their daily lives. It looked like a paradise of nature. Before the gate closed behind me, Rat charged out of it and up my trunk. "Welcome to the garden department. I'm here to pick you up." At some point, a little girl had walked out from shrubbery and approached us. Her angelic voice left me stunned for a moment. "Good evening, Crocus." Is Rose still attempting to heal the behemoth she picked up? Yes, she is very frustrated by her inability to cure it and hasn't left its side since. However, she has instructed me to give the newcomer a tour of the area and then bring him to meet her. Very well, then I will leave him in your capable hands. Eldar, I will be leaving now, but we will surely meet again in the near future. It was a pleasure meeting you, Lord Abel. The end. Author's note. This is where Eldar's story as the main character ends and he becomes a side character in Rose's story. I'd like to convey my deepest appreciation to all my readers and listeners. This book is now available on Amazon as an ebook, paperback, and hardcover. If you want to support me as an author or get yourself a nifty physical copy, then please check it out. The book is published under the name Jarcher Writes. If you see it published under any other name, it's pirated. You will also find a link to it in the description. Author's note.